Hello everyone, welcome to the 5 Minutes PM podcast. Today I'd like to continue the podcast about the PMBOK 6th edition. If you recall, last week I spoke more about the structure of the guide, the big changes, the number of processes going from 47 to 49, and I explained the main changes in the chapters. So right now I want to talk about each knowledge area and go into a little bit more detail on them. So the first one, starting with the integration. So integration used to be composed by 6 processes. Let's remember, integration is to put everything together. The only reason you have integration in your project is to make sure that one aspect will not dominate everything, that the cost will not dominate or that the scope, so that you have a balance and some kind of diversity on your observation of the work of the project. So the integration got a new process, and this new process is called Manage Project Knowledge. And this is basically the lessons learned. If you remember in the previous version, many times we saw as an output of the process, lessons learned, lessons learned. The PMBOK this time decided to create one process specifically to that in the execution. I like very much because it makes a clear assessment that this piece of knowledge management is a very relevant piece for the learning of the project. When we go to the scope, there is no major change on the scope. It's very important when I say there is no major change. I'm not saying that the scope became less relevant, please. I'm just talking about changes. When we go to schedule, and I'm saying schedule, most of you will think, oh, is it time? So this is one small but quite relevant change. It's not time management anymore. It's now schedule management. And why this change? It's because time we cannot control, but schedule we can control. The way we program the tasks over time is something that we have control, but time is the clock. So this is exactly why PMI decided to make this move. Another move is that this schedule management lost one process to the new resource knowledge area. And this process is called Estimate Activity Resource. If you remember previous versions, you would see this resource estimation as part of the former time management, because this is a critical aspect for you to build the schedule, together with duration, together with the definition of activities. So these were all part of this time management. But PMI did a great, and I love this change, when they changed human resource to just resource. So this knowledge area moved to this new, or this renewed area called resource. I will talk about it in a minute. So when we go to cost and quality, the two knowledge areas, there is no massive change. So just some small changes. So there is no different processes, though they are basically the 3 processes on the 4 and the 3 processes on the same as the 5th edition. Now let's talk about something cool, resources. If you remember, we spoke a lot about human resource in the past. So the chapter 9. And now this chapter became only resource. The first thing I want you to know and make aware up front, at any moment, nobody was thinking that the human aspect became less relevant. Please don't think, oh, now the PMBOK removed the human resource and changed it to resource because the human aspect is not relevant. This is completely pointless, this kind of statement. Let's remember, PMI did a new chapter 3 exactly to talk about all the soft skills around project management. Let's remember, chapter 9 includes human resource, but now it includes material, it includes equipment, so it's a much broader, because in the past, when you were developing your project, you have a very good set of processes to help you on understanding the human side, the human resource, but not a very strong process to manage the resources that are not people. So now this process became a resource process, so with a much wider focus. And this process received the new process Estimate Activity Resource that came from the former time knowledge area. If we go to communications, there is no change, basically no main change. If we go to risk, from 6 to 7, the risk got a new process. I have honestly mixed feelings about that. And why I have mixed feelings? Because some points I think it's great to give such a strong relevance and a strong empowerment to the risk area, but sometimes I think it's a little bit too much the level of detail on risk. But it's just my personal opinion, so you may agree with me or not, and that's fine. The new process on the risk is implement risk responses. And this is an execution process. This is a clear execution process because if you remember, in the past, we had the plan, risk response plan, and now we need to implement the responses. So let's suppose you decided to buy an insurance. So then you buy an insurance during the execution. So this is exactly to give more clarity. It's not because the risk management got some new feature, but it's just to clarify in a more reasonable way this process. On the procurement lost one process. The close procurement does not exist anymore. That is a closing process. Remember, the closing process became now only close project or phase. And this includes all the other 9 knowledge areas on it. And finally, stakeholder management. It's a quite new process, quite new knowledge area, so there is no major change. Another major change around all these 49 processes and these 10 areas is the agile component. Is to bring the agility. And I want to finish this podcast by saying that a lot of people think that PMBOK is bureaucratic, it's traditional, and let me tell you, everything like that is just nonsense. You can make the PMBOK guide a very painful process, and you can make any agile process a very painful process. It depends on who you are and what is your behavior. So a lot of people think that the PMBOK guide is like a dogmatic approach. If you don't do that box, the project will fail. This is just irrelevant. So just read the PMBOK, take what you get, the main ideas. Don't produce documents that are just irrelevant just by producing them. If they are irrelevant, just don't do it. This is what I do in my professional life. So you do what is relevant for you, and this will make you agile. So regardless of what process and what methodology you use, you can be slow, you can be fast, you can be agile, you can be nimble. It depends much more on your behavior and your attitude towards the project. So what I suggest you, it's if you're a member of PMI, go to the members area, download the PMBOK. Take a time to give a look on what's going on. You can see my process flow to help you to understand that, and my YouTube video to help you. So it's a very important that you have this content. And if you are not member, it's a great time for you to evaluate that, because you have a lot of knowledge that you can download as part of your membership. I think it's a great idea if you want really to make a difference in this sector. So I hope you enjoy this podcast. I apologize for this very long podcast, but it's a very special podcast. So see you next week with another 5 Minutes PM podcast.